Welcome back, Weirdos, and actually welcome to our very first Minisode.
Oh my,
Yay!
this is so exciting.
And this is an extra special episode because not only is it our first Minisode, but we are also at West Coast Creative Studio. So we have a very fancy setup today.
Yes. So, and if you are one of our patrons, you will be able to watch the video.
Yeah.
And you'll notice some pretty major changes.
It looks so beautiful, so cozy in here. I mean, we could move in.
I definitely could move in, especially with the couch in the corner. You guys can't see it, but I really love that space so much.
And tell us, love, what are we going to be listening to for our Minisode today?
So I have a little bit of a topical discussion for today because the Olympics are here. They're about to be here. By the time this comes out, I don't know, but in the very least, it will be in the short term. So we'll be talking about a specific aspect of the Olympics that you would think is ancient, but is actually from the 20th century.
Really?
Yeah. So, but before we even get into that, let's talk about the ancient Olympics because, of course, this is history for weirdos after all.
We got to start in the ancient world.
Yeah. We're going to go back to like the dawn of classical antiquity, 776 BC.
That was a good year.
It's a good year. Yeah. You know, a couple thousand years, America will be founded. But for now, America is still way off. So the very first Olympic Games, 776 BC, they're held in ancient Greece at the religious sanctuary of, you guessed it, Olympia.
I wasn't going to guess it, but that makes so much sense. Yes, Olympia.
Olympia, hence Olympics. So this is in a celebration, like it's a huge event of Pan-Hellenism, which is like the coming together of all the Greeks. Because at this point, we think of Greece as like as a nation state, but that's modern.
Yeah.
And at this point in time, every single city state or polis is its own little like micronation.
And they'd have kind of their own different cultural identities, right? They wouldn't see themselves as the same.
Right. Like it's kind of, I mean, it's kind of hard to say because on some levels, like they do have a shared culture. They do have a shared religion. But I mean, Athenians are going to think of themselves as Athenians before they're Greeks.
Okay.
Spartans are going to think of themselves as Spartans.
Before being Greek. Okay.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
So yeah, like, but you're right for the most part. So this would be like a recurring event that would happen every 4 years. And this is in honor of the first or the mythical first Olympics, which was a competition between four brothers, all to entertain Zeus, like baby Zeus.
Oh, baby Zeus.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
So there's the first like historical Olympics in the ancient world, and then there's the first mythical Olympics.
And you said the first historical Olympics is meant to honor the myth of the Olympics.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So the winner of that mythical event was given an olive wreath as a symbol of victory. And, you know, the events happening every 4 years, plus like the olive wreath, those are traditions that still last till today.
Yeah, that's wild.
I mean, the vibes, if we're talking about vibes here, of the ancient Olympics were one of peace. And in fact, it was considered like a crime against the gods to commit any sort of act of violence whatsoever while the games were being played, especially at or near Olympia.
That's incredible to think about because their world was so much more violent than ours.
Absolutely. And it was pretty much instant death for you if you were to do something bad.
So don't do anything bad. Got it.
Yes. And these ancient games lasted well over a millennium.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, it goes all the way towards the late Roman Empire. So the end of either like the last ancient Olympic Games were held at the end of the 4th century or beginning of the 5th century AD. We know conclusively, like for certain, there was one, like I think it was like 390 something AD.
Do we know why they stopped?
Probably Christianity. And I'm not just saying that just to throw shade. No, but like in all seriousness, though, like it was seen as a pagan ritual.
Okay.
And this is the time of like Theodosius and like Christianity is now like the de jure.
It's like the de facto religion.
Yeah,
it's the
like
state religion.
Yeah, not only de facto, like de jure, like it is like mandated to be like the one and only religion of the Roman Empire. We talked about a little bit about this in the episode of Alexander's tomb.
Yes.
So kind of like it's that time period, right? But now that we've kind of covered that, let's move on to the modern era.
Yes.
So this torch that we're going to be talking about, right? The torch relay, it comes kind of define the Olympics in the modern sense, right? You always kind of picture like this heroic looking man or woman running into like an arena, you know, with like tens of thousands of people screaming, right, holding this torch to go ahead and light that cauldron at the very end, right?
Yeah.
And it looks ancient.
It does. It looks like an ancient ritual for sure.
But it is not. To present like a bit of a caveat though, the ancient Greeks did have like a sacred flame for the Olympics, but there wasn't a torch.
Okay.
It was held at the sanctuary of Hestia.
That makes sense. The home and the hearth.
Exactly. And it was stationary. It just was there the whole time. It didn't move or anything. So it may actually surprise you that the origins of the Olympic torch, I've already kind of let loose that it came about in the 20th century. Even more surprising, though, it was first used in the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, the capital of Nazi Germany at the time.
That was the first time?
The very first time.
Okay. I can't wait to hear why and how this came about and why we kept it. That's so interesting.
I even wrote in my notes, like, boom goes the dynamite.
Yeah.
So when I refer to the Olympic torch, I want to be really clear here. I am referring to the torch itself, but then kind of also the act of the relay of the flame, which even in modern times takes place or originates in Olympia, Greece, and then goes to the destination of where the Olympics are being held.
That's beautiful to think about.
Yeah, it's, I mean, it is kind of beautiful symbolism. And we'll get into symbolism here in a second. So this tradition was the brainchild of a guy by the name of Carl Diem, and he was the chief organizer of the 1936 Berlin Games.
Talk about pressure.
Talk about pressure indeed. Yeah, his boss is literally Hitler.
Yeah, so if he messes up, I don't think it's going to be good.
And before we kind of dive into like 1936 specifically, let's talk about the ceremony itself. So interestingly, this tradition starts with 11 women who represent the Vestal Virgins, who we've also done an episode on.
Yeah, we know the Vestal Virgins.
And they perform a celebration at the Temple of Hera. And at this point, you might be like, wait a minute, Vestal Virgins are Roman.
Yes, not Greek.
They're not Greek. And we are crossing civilizations a bit here between the Greeks and Romans. But, you know, hey, it's the thought that I guess counts.
I mean, that is very modern. Of us, we tend to see all of the ancient world kind of like as the same thing.
Especially Greek and Roman. It's like, you're just one.
Yeah, which isn't the case, but we get it.
We get it. Yeah, exactly. So get this. These quote unquote priestesses, right? They use a parabolic mirror to like harvest the sun's light, right? Into a single point and then use that single point of light, like beam, and create fire.
Like,
so they literally take it from, you know, symbolically, right? They take it from the gods, from the heavens.
That's like in Toy Story, the kid Sid.
Yes.
The evil neighbor kid, he does that with a magnifying glass to torture the toys.
That is the same sort of technique, indeed.
That's crazy.
So either torturing toys or creating the Olympic light. It's the same thing, basically.
Same thing.
Yes. So it's like a whole ceremony too, by the way. It's not just like, oh, these 11 women doing this thing. They read a poem from Pindar, who's an ancient Greek poet. Oh. And they let like doves fly free to represent like peace as well.
Lots of heavy symbolism here.
Yes. Symbolism and imagery like up the wazoo.
English majors and classics majors would be going crazy.
Yeah, you guys are, you're so happy right now. I mean, I told you it's a huge production. And it's from here that the torch is finally lit from the cauldron, and like just as by way of relay, it's just goes from one person to the next person to the next person for God knows how many miles till it gets to the final destination.
Wow.
Like months later, usually.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. So this whole thing, by the way, almost didn't happen because of a single individual, that person being literally Hitler.
Why?
Because
what did he have an issue with here? Tell me.
Okay, so Germany had won the rights to host the Olympics in 1936, all the way back in 1931, prior to the rise of Adolf Hitler.
And that's still how it works today, like we know. years and
Yes.
years in advance.
Exactly. Like this year it takes place in Paris, but that was awarded years ago. And Hitler, to answer your question, wasn't keen on the Olympics in general, dismissing it as, and this is a quote directly from him, quote, an invention of Jews and Freemasons, end quote.
What?
Like, how do you make this stuff up? That's kind of what I want to know. Like, how does this even come to your mind?
Also, just what? Why?
But
Particularly, you think his whole thinking is that him and his people are the best of the best, right?
Right.
Wouldn't you want to showcase that on an international platform if you truly believe it?
That is exactly what Goebbels thought, funny enough. But I also just wanted to point out that I feel like that type of line is so on brand for him. It's like ridiculous. Even before, everything that we know now that is to come to pass hasn't yet.
It sounds like a lot of, to be honest, a lot of political rhetoric we hear today. Just blindly blaming one group
Yes.
for everything that you can think of.
Humans are not as, I think, original as we like to think.
No, absolutely not. If I've learned anything from TikTok, is that I've never had an individual unique thought in my life.
That's sadly true.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, going now to Goebbels, he kind of brought up to Hitler what you just pointed out. Like, hey, this could be great for propaganda. And as, Goebbels is the propaganda minister of the Nazi regime, kind of goes to show, like, he kind of knows what he's talking about. And to be fair, he is correct. It is a great propaganda tool.
Yeah.
So, especially like having this torch relay, think about it, right? Just in your mind, having it be like this kind of stirring opening act to the games and the ceremony really does paint like a vivid, like, hoorah kind of mentality, right? And would get people to at least, even subconsciously, I think, sympathize, which is dangerous.
I think it really would do a good job of tying this modern empire that he's trying to build, the Reich or whatever, to the ancient world, to the classical world that everyone looks at with such like a romantic perspective.
Right.
It is deviously well thought out, to be honest.
You stole the words right out of my mouth. That is the next note I have. I mean, Hitler did idolize, literally he did idolize the Greeks and in particular the Romans as well. And again, you can conflate the two. And you're right. Like, there is now like literally like a link between Mount Olympus, right? The heart of ancient Greece, even revered by the Romans as well.
Yeah.
To 1936 Nazi Germany.
This is crazy. This would be very dangerous.
The most ironic thing about this whole situation is that Diem, the organizer of the 1936 Olympics, he actually was not a Nazi.
Oh, wow.
But he unintentionally, I should say, creates this propaganda tool that is, just incredible from it gets what needs to get done from their perspective.
What a difficult situation for that man to be in.
Yeah.
To not believe in the ideology, but at the end of the day, it's your job to make them look good.
Exactly.
And if you don't make them look good, I don't think they take too kindly to that.
Yes, and he did his job too well, if anything. So kind of switching gears a little bit to the actual relay of 1936, the lighting of the torch must have taken at least 6 weeks, but I couldn't find
exactly how long.
Yeah, exactly how long it took to get from Olympia, Greece to Berlin. But regardless, it traveled over 2,000 miles. And this is the first time they did this. So they don't have like the benefit of hindsight to set up like advanced logistics. They just were like, okay, we're going to run it. And literally.
They kind of are guesstimating the time it's going to take, I imagine. They don't have Google Maps.
They do not have Google Maps at this time. They don't even have Google.
Yeah.
But it travels from Greece through Bulgaria, Yugoslavia, Hungary, Austria, and Czechoslovakia before finally making it into Germany.
Oh my God.
Yes. Along the way, it was blessed by Greek Orthodox priests in Bulgaria and was serenaded by Romani musicians, funny enough.
What? They serenaded the torch?
Yes, because I think it's also a symbol of peace as well.
I see.
Like, of course, Hitler's going to co-opt that, but it's also
The
intended.
idea of it.
Exactly. Like peace and international unity.
And that's something everyone can get behind or wants to at least make it look like they're getting behind.
Exactly. It's very devious, like you said. So when the relay finally reached Vienna on the evening of July 29th, 1936, Austrian Nazis sang the Nazi party anthem and welcomed the flame with cries of Heil Hitler.
Ugh.
I know.
Disgusting.
Yeah, really, really ironic. The Olympic flame was finally welcomed by like 50,000 Germans at the Czech border on the morning of July 31st, 1936. And on the following day, German runner Fritz Schliegen held the torch aloft as he entered Berlin's Olympic Stadium before a sea of 100,000 onlookers.
Oh my God. Could you imagine the rush that you would get running in with the torch and having all of those people just like screaming, going crazy?
So I have a little bit of experience with this.
How so?
High school football.
Oh my goodness. I'm sure it was exactly the same.
Yeah, it was a few thousand people running it. And that was kind of wild, actually.
Yeah.
And I was just like a random guy. I wasn't even a starter or anything.
Yeah, imagine all eyes are just on you.
Just you, and there's 100,000 instead of a few thousand.
That must be what rock stars feel like.
Oh, I can't even imagine that rush.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's funny, actually, kind of as a quick aside, Shaq has said that DJing is the closest feeling that he has to like a game 7 of like the world championship or the world championship, the NBA finals. It kind of is. It kind of is.
Basically the world championship.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh my gosh, you're right. Athletes like that, like a top tier, top of their game, once they retire, must always be seeking something similar.
Right, exactly.
Whether consciously or unconsciously. That's so interesting.
This guy, Fritz, here, I can't even imagine what he's feeling. So Schliegen wasn't even an actual Olympian, funny enough. He was just chosen as the final torchbearer for his youthful, quote unquote, Aryan appearance and his graceful gait.
I had a feeling.
That's
it's aesthetics, it's optics.
That's Goebbels right there, 100%.
Or Kris Jenner, the Kardashian mom. She would also think of something like that.
That's sadly true. Sadly true. So this was like a fairly monumental like moment, and it was a pretty big feat, right? Just logistically.
Yes, it's impressive.
And for political purposes, this was so spot on. Like it's kind of amazing to look at it in hindsight, just from like a pure analytical perspective.
Like a case study. It's wild.
It is. I mean, I think it was more successful than I think they could have even possibly imagined. And we'll even get into that a little bit later in like the post-Nazi world. So, I mean, symbolically and literally, right? The torch is being passed from ancient Greece to Nazi high command, right? At least in the eyes of Hitler. It's a big deal for him. And of course, all of this was captured on film and was to be used in the Nazi propaganda film called Olympia, directed by Leni Riefenstahl.
Content creators, man.
I know.
We got to capitalize on this to make some content.
Yeah, exactly. We know a little bit about that. Oh my God. Can't believe I just said that. Anyways, some of the shots, funny enough, from the original like Olympic Games weren't like up to snuff according to Riefenstahl. And so they actually had to reshoot some of the scenes like post Olympics.
That's so weird.
I know.
So lame.
It kind of makes sense when you think of like the mythical origins.
Yeah.
They have their own mythical origins.
Absolutely. Good point.
And I mean, this included shots like even at Olympia and at like kind of the runners coming into Berlin as well.
Wow.
Yeah. So those are shots that are redone for this propaganda film. And again, like this was of paramount importance to the Nazis because they needed to have this link establishing the connection between, again, Mount Olympus and ancient Greece to Nazi Germany. I cannot emphasize that enough. Like that was everything to them. So World War II happens, as we know, like literally just 3 years later. So all this like talk of peace is kind of right out the window, and the most devastating human conflict of all time happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, not a great look for this kind of torch relay, right?
Obviously was very inauthentic effort.
And there wouldn't be another Olympic Games for 12 years after 1936.
I didn't realize that. That makes sense.
World War II kind of ruins it, right? There was supposed to be 1940, 1944, and it's finally 1948 that we have the London Games.
That makes perfect sense, but I don't think I ever thought about what happened to the Olympics during that time.
There just wasn't any.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Could there be? Mm-hmm.
So, ironically, right, this torch relay is supposed to represent peace, amongst other things, and it didn't look like this like tradition would continue past 1936.
Mm-hmm.
I think for a fair reason.
Mm-hmm.
But the most surprising thing did happen, and the London Olympic officials actually decided to go ahead with it again. Because, I mean, just again, from an optics perspective, like throwing out the symbolism, it is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the symbolism even of like taking something from ancient Greece, right? The heart of ancient Greece to wherever it is now is like a fairly like strong like symbol.
It ties the past to the present, and it also unifies the nations involved in the relay. It is very cool outside of the Nazi intentions.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. So the London officials decided to go ahead and do the relay again, despite, it originally being used to advance Nazism. This time, though, they rebrand the event, so to speak, and kind of just doubled down on peace, calling it the relay of peace, like in quotes.
And that's something people would want to hear at this time.
Exactly, like taking this torch through like war-torn Europe, right? And also think of the route that it's going now. So it starts in southeastern Europe, more or less, right? Mm-hmm. In Olympia, Greece, and the Peloponnese. And then I think it makes its way by boat across the Adriatic Sea into Italy, and kind of just goes up Italy, like, and through the heart of Europe all the way to you get to the coast of the North Sea coast or the English Channel coast. And then it goes, from there to London.
Yeah.
So, and it kind of is the symbol of unity post-war, right? Kind of reuniting Europe. Like, the route takes you through some of the worst like parts where it's just rubble. Like once thriving cities are just dust.
Very beautiful symbol of human resilience, really.
Exactly. And I think that's what they're going for, because it is a beautiful kind of view. And also in this spirit, right? The first torchbearer in Greece is a corporal in the Greek army named Konstantinos Dimitriadis.
It's a pretty Greek name.
Yeah, you got to say that 3 times fast. No, please don't. He was a corporal, right? He takes off his army uniform and lays down his weapons, and instead just dons like a runner suit instead.
That's cool.
And that is like a really, I think, big piece of this history, because just like in the spirit of the ancient games, right, this would be the spirit of international cooperation, unity, and peace. Most importantly, peace.
Yeah.
Again, it kind of goes back to the very beginning of this episode when I was saying, these games were sacrosanct. If you commit any violence, it's a crime punishable by death.
Yeah.
I mean, ironic, right? You think of the violence there. But like everyone took this seriously. Even in times of war, there was Olympic Games. And I think most notably when the Athenians were fighting the Spartans, that was still like no violence was to be held there.
Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense to have a military person put down their weapons for peace. It's a really good way of echoing that. Yeah,
exactly. And almost like symbolically like shedding like the military aspect and embracing the civilian aspect. So, and I could just imagine like at this time, post World War II, people craved that sort of just, I don't know how to describe it, almost like the strength of peace, especially during like the chaos that is war.
It provides hope.
Yeah, exactly. People just wanted something steady. And not just like, oh, my entire life got ruined and everyone I know died.
And the economy's shit.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's a really good way of putting it. So this torch relay right now is a symbol of unity, peace, and cooperation, despite its original purpose for Nazi propaganda, which is really cool. And is honestly pretty amazing, like considering how this symbol, with not the greatest origins, can be reclaimed for something better.
Yeah, the original intention was nefarious, but now the intentions are more pure, I guess.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself. And since 1948, the torch has been to pretty much every single country and has been transported by both ship and by airplane.
Is it the same torch?
I think there's a few different torches.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But
and they even have backup ones too, just in case, because the flames go out.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But these torches are well traveled.
They're very well traveled. Oh, yeah. Not only that, it's also been to space multiple times. It wasn't lit in space, but the unlit torch was in space.
Oh my God.
3 separate times.
That's really unnecessary, but cool.
It's so unnecessary. It's kind of like when Tesla launched that car into space.
Mm-hmm. We don't need that, but that's interesting to know we can do it.
Exactly. Cool. It's like checking that off the list. So, however, something I do want to mention though, is kind of like a caveat and almost like a warning to the future is there's been like a little bit of a worrisome trend, I think, ever since last decade, where the route of the torch has been essentially just Greece and the home country.
Oh.
Yeah. So, or the host country, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like an extra country here and there purely for logistical purposes. But like this year, for example, it was transported from Olympia, Greece directly to France and is just traveling all around France, even traveling to like the French possessions, like French Polynesia and other like little islands as well.
The French possessions make sense, but skipping the route between Greece and France doesn't seem like it's very much so in the spirit of the message that it's supposed to represent.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. It is, and it does defeat kind of the whole point in my eyes, at least.
It cheapens it.
It definitely cheapens it. It feels more of a gimmick now, as opposed to before. It was a little bit like, instead of pan-Hellenism, it was like pan-humanism.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, from a practical sense of view, it's a little worrisome because I think there's just less international cooperation now than there was even 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And, I like to think that the torch relay is just a good reminder that cooperation is probably better than isolation.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it's just a relay race, right? I could be looking into this way too much, but also I don't think so.
We have very, very ancient brains. Our brains haven't been updated in a really long time, so to speak.
Yeah.
And they respond very well to symbolism. So I do think it's meaningful.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, weirdos, and especially patrons, I'd love to hear what you guys think, because you guys are the only ones that are going to be able to make it this far.
Yeah, that's so true.
No one else on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, they won't be listening to these very words right now.
It's because we appreciate you guys so much.
Yeah.
We really, really do. Thank you for your support of the podcast, for your support of the Patreon. You have no idea how much it means to us.
Yeah. Your support is honestly, is like everything.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be here without you, because like this was originally started as just a passion project that we has kind of morphed into something much bigger than either of us have anticipated. And it's literally because of you guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
So thank you so much. Well, that's all. That's all I have for this very first special Minisode episode.
Well, thank you so much, because I never even thought about the origins of the torch ceremony.
And how it was literally a Nazi like propaganda tool.
Yeah, I truly assumed like they must have done this with the first Olympics, and now we still do it. But
that was my assumption too.
Yeah, this is a really, really interesting story, and it kind of changes the way you look at the symbol and how you look at the current day practices.
Right.
It shows how impactful things like that can be.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. I loved learning about this.
Thank you for listening.
And weirdos, since you're not listening on Spotify or anything like that, you don't necessarily need to rate and review. But like Andrew said, we would love to hear your thoughts. Do you think the torch, it's fine if it just goes from Greece to the host country? Do you think it should have a certain trajectory? Do you think it should go through? I don't know. You tell us. What are your thoughts?
Right. And also, if you have any ideas on future things that should be
Minisodes.
added. Oh, well, I was saying for the Olympics, but also, yes, also future Minisode episode possibilities. Also, I should have done this at the beginning, but I'll do it now because I don't want to forget. Brian Hales, our patron, thank you so much for doing this, for giving me the idea of this, because I had no idea about this before he mentioned it.
Well, thank you, Brian. I didn't realize it was one of our patrons that inspired you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He sent me this and I was immediately just like, yeah,
Yes,
okay, we're doing the episode on this.
You can share your thoughts on what should be added to the Olympics, but to be fair, we don't have as much sway there.
We don't.
So if you share your thoughts on future minisodes, we could probably deliver a little bit more.
Yeah, that you have a lot more control on that aspect.
Well, thank you so much, Weirdos.
Thank you so much. And until next time.
Adios.
Perfect. Yay.